Popular Coast to Coast Pick 5 and the new Sunset Pick 6, featuring the last 3 races from
Gulfstream Park at Santa Anita Park. A $1 minimum.
retail only wagers. Coast to Coast Pick 5 and Sunset Pick 6 every Friday through Sunday.
Getting ready for that Coast to Coast Pick 5 coming up on Saturday. I am Gino Bacola alongside my good friend Barry Spears, the sniper. Barry, you love Gulfstream Park. That's kind of home track for you. For me, it's Santa Anita, and the great folks over at First Racing have put together these awesome wagers, the Coast to Coast Pick 5, the Sunset 6, where they combine the two tracks, and they're super player friendly. Dollar-based wagers, 15% low takeout. A lot of times Daily Racing Form will have free PPs that we're putting out there for you too, along with the sequence. If nobody hits it, it carries over. So then it can start to really build up after a couple days. These are really fun wagers to take a swing at.
Yeah, not only fun, but very difficult.
Profitable, hard, right? Yeah.
This sequence is pretty tough.
Really challenging sequence. If you're going to follow along with us, the Saturday sequence starts at Gulfstream Park, race number 8. Then we bounce over to Santa Anita for race 4. We go back to Gulfstream for the 11th race, which is a really tough filly and mare, the Sunshine Filly and Mare Turf, wide open race. Then the last 2 legs of the sequence back at Santa Anita, races 6 and 8. So we're evens at Santa Anita, races 4, 6, and 8. And then at Gulfstream, races 8 and 11. A couple things to mention before we dive into the race preview. Now, because of some of the wet weather in Southern California over the last couple weeks, there's a lot of racing coming up at Santa Anita. We're recording this on Thursday. They have racing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week and next week, and some really strong cards, big races. There's a lot of horses that are looking to run after the cancellation. So check out what's going on over at Santa Anita. They have these feeders at ExpressBet for just $40. I know, Barry, this was the way that you and I love to try to qualify for some of these tournaments, because you pay $40, you get some action all throughout the day, and you get a chance to try to win your way into the big Santa Anita Challenge Santa Anita Challenge game that's going on January the 17th. And then over at Gulfstream, trying to win your way into the PWCBC. You and I were just chatting, only a couple weeks away from the Pegasus World Cup, just I think 3 weekends from now. So if you want to try to get into that huge tournament, it's like a 3-step process. Instead of paying the $6,000, the big fee to get in, or the $1,000 for the super low ratio qualifier seats, you can get in for just $100. Every racing day at Gulfstream, they have these $100 feeders. You want to check those on out. So, Barry, we have a difficult task ahead of us, my friend. We're going to start at Gulfstream Park in race number 8, take a look at the 8th race, and then we'll go over to Santa Anita, take a look at race number 4. Starting here at Gulfstream Park, race number 8, we begin with a maiden special weight. So these are the newly turned 3-year-olds. They're going a mile and a 16th. This is kind of like a Kentucky Derby hopefuls race, right? Horses in here are hoping that they can maybe get themselves into bigger races in the next couple months and maybe get a spot into the Kentucky Derby. So horses that are, going to take some money in here. You've got the one, Rama J, who comes off of back-to-back runner-up efforts, all 3 of those races for Saffie Joseph Jr. You have the 3 Thunderously, who's a first-time starter for Bill Mott, Junior Alvarado jumping aboard. Those connections alone will take some money. 2 really nice efforts from Sartorial over at Churchill. Horse doesn't have a lot of early speed, but he's run into Incredible and Chip Honcho, both who came back to win stakes races in their next start. So I think he's going to get some support, and he's going to take a little bit of action as well. Towards the outside, you have Pax Mundi for Jose D'Angelo. He's run second in both of his starts. But, I mean, that's not even all of them, Barry. Horses like the 8, Ace Jack Deuce wouldn't shock. 6, Fancy Gentleman. These are horses who showed something in their debuts and could absolutely step forward. Cruisin' Cross Bay was favored over Solitude Dude, who came back to win a stakes in his next start. This is not an easy way to begin a pick 5 sequence.
No way. I mean, I would go out on a limb and say that we might see a few of these horses going towards like the Florida Derby.
Yeah, if they can get there, right?
When it's all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think this might be a pretty good race to kind of gauge what kind of 3-year-old season that we might see down at Gulfstream.
Yeah.
That being said, a horse that really caught my eye would be the 7 Cruisin' Cross Bay.
Sure.
Getting a makeover package for Safi. Second time out is one of his stronger angles. But the race that this horse came out of on November 1st, there were 5 of the 8 horses in that race came back to finish first or second in their next start.
Led by Solitude Dude, who won the inaugural by 8 lengths in his next start. Zucchero also came back to win a maiden special weight next time out, improved his buyer speed figure quite a bit. That was on the turf at Gulfstream Park. So right off the bat, you've got those 2 winners who have come back and run really well. You've got Diamond Knife, who came back and finished 3rd in his next start in a maiden special weight race, or finished 2nd in his next start in a maiden special weight race. He was a 3rd place finisher there. He improved his buyer speed figure as well. I mean, you just see the improvement that all the horses that are coming out of this race have shown so far. Here's another one who has come back and run a couple times and has run 2nd, 3rd, and 2nd in the time since coming back. It's just a strong race.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it as well. Not to mention the fact that Cruisin' Cross Bay was the favorite in that race. Has a couple works since and looks pretty good. That debut wasn't that bad despite what it might look like on paper.
No, there was just no passing. Right?
Yeah,
Solitude Dude got out front. Look at the top 2 finishers. They just went 1-2. Had a little slight bid up to 3rd from Cruisin' Cross Bay. Looked like a little something, and then nobody was making any headway there, and he backed up.
Right. And the thought being that they really didn't want to win. They weren't unveiling a monster that day. They were giving that horse a race, probably pointing towards this, stretching out, possible Derby stakes implications. So this horse makes a lot of sense in this spot. At 10-1, it is definitely a horse I'd have to keep on my radar.
And with a lot of these horses that are newly turned 3-year-olds, if they're not in stakes races too, they can get Lasix, right, for the first time. This one will get Lasix. He'll be able to add the blinkers. That'll help him focus a little bit. Yeah, he's just like one of many in this competitive race.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot like him. I mean, Fancy Gentleman, the 6 is another one.
Yep.
Getting Lasix for the first time. Didn't run that poorly first time out.
Nope.
Should move forward off of that effort. Gargan's been really good with his young horses this year and last year. So I would expect that one on the improve, getting Rosario. And the 5, Sartorial. I think the Lasix might be a bigger factor here for the reason that this horse was kind of running evenly. And maybe with a slight improvement, the Lasix, everything else, maturing, getting older, turning 3, because that Chip Honcho race wasn't too bad.
No, or the Incredible race.
Here's needs to get into it a little earlier. That's my only knock.
And that's the worry at Gulfstream too, right? Because that's not the type of track that seems to fit his profile. But he's a hard horse for me to leave out if you're starting a pick 5 here, because, and we're talking about strong races. I mean, he's come out of a race that's produced a couple next out winners, including a grade 3 winner. Incredible. And then you were just talking about the Chip Honcho race, which was last time out. Chip Honcho was the winner. He came right back to win the Gun Runner over at Fairgrounds on December the 20th. So those 2 races were races that he faced good horses, next out winners, and in races where there wasn't a lot of passing with his running style. So if he gets a little bit of pace to run at in this bigger field, I think you have to include the 5 Sartorial. Barry already mentioned both the 6 and the 7, who are going to be fine prices and are super logical. I'll mention 1 or 2 others in here. You look at Pax Mundy to the outside. He's probably a contender in here. He did have a tougher trip than it sort of may look on paper. I mean, he was sitting inside just behind the leaders, and then he got shuffled. He had to wait. He tried to get through a tight spot on the inside. Then he gets shut off. He has to stop, back up, angle around. I do think it was a race that he can learn from a little bit, and he can take a step forward off of that. Irad jumps aboard on the outside there. And then another horse who was kind of like the 2 that you mentioned before, both like the 6 and the 7, is the 8, Ace Jack Deuce, whose debut was not all that bad behind Ramajay. Ace Jack Deuce was last early, and show a little bit of the race here.
Yeah, I was at that race. I was at Gulfstream that day, and Jackson Hole kind of overwhelmed this field
Yeah,
on just pure talent. So it was hard to gauge what everybody else was like behind this
it's a
horse.
good point. It's a really good point. We're looking at the 2 Ace Jack Deuce, who it's like not even in the screen early on, right? He's way out of it at, like early on. Um, and then he's going to close really well up the inside. So like he's just off the screen a bit here, and then we can flash a little more to where we see the 2 starting to come into the mix here. But as Barry pointed out, the 7 Jackson Hole gets a nice trip, just sort of like looks really good, like kind of traveling well a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Looks
for
like
a
the winner
first
in here.
time starter, again, I was watching this race right at the rail, and I thought that Jackson Hole really, was real lost out there, but he still won. It took him a while. He kind of needed some revving up, so he doesn't have a really quick turn of foot. He kind of grinded this one out, and it wasn't pretty by any means, but it was serviceable, and
Yeah,
you can tell that this horse has talent. Just needs to get on the track and run some more races.
and that
Now
was the
that being
2.
said, a horse like Ramajay who showed speed might be interesting in this spot because they may get overlooked. Um,
It just
because
because of the
it's
seconds,
hard,
right? Like the
right?
3 seconds, you kind of are looking for like a different horse because he's kind of like, okay, he's solid, he's fine. But you're right. Like he absolutely has a shot. Like that was not a bad effort. And what I liked about Ramajay too is when he like got challenged and pressed at the top of the lane,
He went,
he fought on.
yeah.
It did look like he was going to be just kind of easily passed, but he kept trying really hard there too. So it makes this race so tricky. Those 2 horses who both come out of that race wouldn't shock. We didn't even really talk a whole lot about Thunderously, who I I
Can't
do
do it.
think you got to be really good to go like first time out of the box long like this. You can just see Mott hasn't been good first time out of the box with horses going a mile or longer. It's just not easy. You need a little bit of foundation. This is a big field. I mean, maybe he's that good of a horse. The Dam did win the debut, Princess Warrior, and then was second in the Alcibiades, and couple siblings both won. Anything on this guy?
I'm kind of cold on that horse, but I thought one to keep an eye on in case the price, kind of floats up, especially at the beginning of the
Yeah.
sequence where you can add a horse like
Yeah,
that.
that's a great point.
Um, that's one to keep an eye on because Mott's capable of winning first out. He doesn't do it often, but when the right horse comes up, he's definitely can be live. I just wouldn't take too short of a price on that horse.
Okay, so there's a look at the first leg of this coast to coast pick 5 sequence. Not easy at all. Barry started with the 7 Cruising Cross Bay, the 6 Fancy Gentleman. We both got into the 5 Sartorial a little bit. I very much do respect the 9 Pax Monday coming off that trouble trip last time out. And I'm going to include the 8 Ace Jacks Deuce as well. And we both don't really have knocks on the 1. Right. So we're both in the spot where we're probably like 3 to 4-ish deep here, using a couple similar, a couple others, but it is not an easy way to start a $1 coast to coast pick 5 sequence, race number 8 on Saturday over at Gulfstream Park. So we can move to Santa Anita, and I can pull up Santa Anita for race number 4. That's where we are heading next. Barry, as I'm making the change, saw you chatting with Louie. Were you talking some Tampa for this week? Let us know what you do over there with Louie and what you were previewing on that show I just saw you on earlier.
Yeah, I was doing the horse racing happy hour with Louis from ESPN Louisville. We went over the late pick 5 at Tampa for Saturday, which includes a couple of stakes races over there. Should be a pretty nice card. Tampa puts together these really sneaky good cards with some stakes mixed in there, and should be a good day. It's kind of like a preview for the Sam Davis Day.
Yeah, so that's where we're at that time right now, right?
Mhm,
It's that fun time where it's
absolutely.
like every weekend it's a different group, it's a different like track that's got their big day and their like preview and what we're going to be on along the way. So really looking forward
Yeah,
to
so like the series at Tampa, they started December 6th. So there was some 6 furlong stakes that day. They have the stakes on the 8th, or I'm sorry, the 10th. Then Sam Davis Day is the 7th of February, and then Tampa Bay Derby is the 8th of March, I believe.
Yeah, about a
So
month
that's
spread out.
basically the series, and it's a good series. I wish more tracks would do this sort of thing, even for other races or other big days. I think it's beneficial to get especially local horses involved instead of those shipping in and so on.
Let's move on over to Santa Anita. Second leg of this coast to coast pick 5 sequence is going to be race number 4. We've got a Calbred maiden special weight group of newly turned 3-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the turf course. So it's the flat turf course, not down the hill, which is the 6.5. Some of the horses in here that I expect to take some good support. You've got Romantic Ride, who's going to be stepping up a little bit, but he's moving from Maiden Claimers Open Company at Churchill to a Calbred race at Santa Anita. So it's a step up in class, but kind of like a lateral move, maybe a little bit of a class hike. Vladimir Surin, very good first start off the claim. You've got the 7 Almost There, who has run second twice for Ryan Hansen. You've got the 8 Tsunami, who was second in the debut. Dark Omen is a first-time starter for a barn who had a really good year at the Aggie Ordonez barn. I mean, even to the outside, you got, first-time starter who will take some money for a barn who's definitely fired with first-time starters before. Barry, again, not easy because you just don't have a lot of form for these horses. They're horses who are lightly raced. Who are some of the horses that you need on your ticket?
Yeah, these are the kind of races, even like the first one we just went over, just will give you fits.
Yeah.
But the 4 Romantic Ride, it speaks to a lot. That they're taking this horse out of that $30,000 claimer, shipping west, then going to the turf, getting Juan Hernandez.
Yep.
That speaks volumes on the confidence of this horse. And my memory is jogged by a horse that ran in the November meet at Del Mar that basically ran in a similar race, a maiden claimer at Indiana, Horseshoe Indianapolis, shipped out to Del Mar in a maiden race, sort of like this, but it was a year layoff. Horse ran for fun. It was kind of like a ship and win sort of deal. This seems almost identical to that.
You just get a great run for your money here, right?
Yeah, he hooks a field that doesn't look all that intimidating on paper.
Nope.
None of these horses scream like they're super, super talented. I'm sure there's some horses that are really nice in here. We just haven't seen it yet.
It's a good spot.
It's a really good spot to try something like this. I'm just afraid the price is going to be 4-1, and I think that might be just a little bit too low. I think they're going to get bet under that 4-1 is what I'm trying to say, which doesn't bode well because Dark Omen, first-time starter, looks okay. I just can't see that horse, being an overwhelming favorite in a race like this. I would say Romantic Ride probably will be the choice, but there's alternatives. There's other horses here, like the 2, for example.
I agree on this one. Yep.
Ran evenly. Seems like they didn't even want to run on the dirt. Got a race into this horse.
Yep.
Shows up here getting Lasix for the first time. Yak Team does very well with these kind of horses. First time on the turf, second time out. I think this horse is going to run in a really improved race. Getting Rispoli also adds to the confidence. At a 15-1, which I doubt we'll get. We'll probably get half that, but I'll take it.
Me too. I agree. I think the 2 that you mentioned are absolute uses for me. Another one in the mix. Tsunami, the debut race was very good. This horse was 5th early, was about 3 or 4 lengths off, angled out widest of all, closed very well for second. That was going 5 furlongs. So 6 furlongs here, a little bit more distance to work with. I'm going to use him. He's in the mix for me. The 9 Dark Omen, the work that I was able to see on First TV December 31st. It was a nice work. It's just sort of difficult because Aggie Ordonez has had such a small barn that when you're looking at numbers and statistics, a lot of the time there's not that many horses and not a big sample size. Very, very capable, but sometimes with the smaller barns, winning first out is still hard. Like it's easier once you get a few races under them.
Well, I mean, look at this horse. I mean, he's an ohm who stands for 5,000.
right.
Clearly, he's not getting the the 300, 400, $500,000 horses that typically kind of take these sort of events. So he has to make do, and sometimes it takes a couple races for these horses to get
Yeah.
good.
4, who we both start with, Romantic Ride. Barry was mentioning the 2 also, Most Senior Big, who I'm definitely going to be including. Just looking at the pedigree too with Dynaformer and Malibu Moon, very, very turfy. Got the race under the belt. Tim Yakteen has been great with these young horses. Got to the 7 was the one who I didn't talk a whole lot about. Those 2 races are both pretty solid.
Okay.
From
Yeah.
almost there. And the horse who beat him, Cal's Goal, came right out of that race to win next time out, beat winners, going 5 on the turf, earned a 71 buyer speed figure, so stepped up a little bit off that. But as we kind of started with the 4, there just aren't really any monsters in here. So you can see if the 4 comes out of this running early, just kind of sitting a nice trip, takes to the grass, the damn one on the grass a couple times, he's going to be pretty tough. Price of the 2 should be fun. We both get into a couple others in here. I mentioned the 8, Tsunami. And yeah, again, these races are not easy because it's going to probably be a battle between the 9 and the 4 who end up going off favored. But it's a race where you can make cases for 5, 6 horses in here. Yeah, item 4, 8, 2, 7. We got into a lot of those horses. We talked about the 9, who's also kind of a question mark, what you want to do with them. Maybe of a price horse. The 5,
The 7, I think, might be the forgotten horse.
The almost there. Yeah, just kind of the
because-
way we're talking about the race, right? It almost sounds like that.
Right. Just in the natural progression of what most horse players are going to see, the 7 might be the forgotten horse, and the Lasix might be what gets this horse over the top.
It's a great point.
So if that horse drifts, that's definitely one to keep an eye on, which I think it will. I think almost their odds are going to go up, and Mr. Big, Monsignor Big is going to come down. So you can split the difference there and theoretically say that they're probably going to be 8-1 a piece around that sort of range, which is perfect.
That is the second leg of a tricky coast-to-coast pick 5 sequence. We're going to move from one to the next. We go back to Gulfstream Park, and then Barry over at Gulfstream Park, we're going to move to the 11th race, I believe, which is the Sunshine Filly and Mare Turf. I will say, I do miss, man, those old Sunshine Million days. I think we've said this like
great.
3 or 4 times in the years that we've talked about it. It was cool when you had a couple of the races at Gulfstream, a couple at Santa Anita, Florida breds versus Cal breds that were in those races, and they'd have the pick 5 or pick 4 that would go back and forth between the 2 of them. And now we just get a couple of these, Sunshine races. But the 11th race is the strongest of the 2 that they have on Saturday. The Classic is the 10th race. But this is a better betting race. It's just more wide open, like a lot of different ways you can go in here. Barry, let's mention some of the major players. You have a horse like the 6 Spirited Boss, who's in pretty nice form. Just came off the bench for Jose D'Angelo with a win over at Tampa. You have Ashima, who won this race last year, beating Great Venezuela. They're both back in this race. Ashima is a 10-time winner. She's been facing Open Company. Now she gets back in with Florida bred, so she should probably be very tough in this race. A lightly raced Super Willowa. You got Rugelok, who was in Southern California for a while, but has been facing Open Company for like ever, and now gets to come in with Florida breds, has speed, can sit off the pace a little bit. Super Zonda is lightly raced. Then you have Great Venezuela, who's drawn to the outside. She's such a cool horse. The problem is she's been in the money in 15 of 16. The problem is only one of those races was going long. And that was last year. She finished second. She ran fine, but she's way out wide here going a mile. So, this is a competitive group because you can poke holes in horses that are short prices on the morning line, like Great Venezuela, who's very honest, but we wonder if this is the trip that she wants, especially from parked out wide.
Not only that, but the pace scenario doesn't really
Bode well.
favor the 11 at all. At least on paper,
No.
this looks like the pace is going to get pretty hot up front.
I agree.
And I think this might turn into somewhat of a rider's race.
Yeah.
That being said, you go to the top rider, Irad Ortiz. Spirited Boss,
Yep.
the 6 horse, seems primed and ready for a big effort, especially coming off a somewhat layoff from June 8th to December 20th. Ran pretty good at Tampa. They ship him back over to Gulfstream. Obviously Lasix is removed, but this horse, it will probably sit an excellent trip. Getting somebody in Irad Ortiz aboard who is very, very good at timing these sort of races. I know before when Irad was riding this horse, it was basically shorter, and he was on the engine against lesser horses. I think showing that dimension of rating last time is a
Gives him
big
some
step
options.
forward. Right.
Absolutely. It's funny, the last race when you went to the 4, that was horse who had on top, and this is the same thing. I just previewed this race for the Sports Grid show this weekend. Angela Herman joined us, and this was my top pick, Spirited Boss here, who, for a lot of the reasons that you said, you can just put a line through that race at Saratoga too that was taken off the turf, the 5.5 race. It wasn't even like she ran poorly that day, but she was just a little bit behind. All the races on the grass are very good, and I love how she's shown she can sit off the pace a little bit. She's been facing Open Company. She's a stakes winner against Open Company and now gets to move back in with Florida Breds. And as you were pointing out, this should be a pretty fair and honest pace in here when you look at, some of the horses who want to be up front. A horse like the 2, Luz de la Luna, is going to be stretching out from sprint races. I imagine she's going to be close. The 3, Miss Mary Nell, she's usually on the engine and right there. Volatile stretching out. I don't think they want to be too far out of it. Continuing along to like Ashima, got some versatility, but a lot of her races, she's really close to it and pushing it. Look at Super Willowa, wants to be close, especially coming off a race last time out where they didn't get the trip that they wanted, having to come from a little farther out of it. Rugelach,
I think that was by design.
They tried to come from out of it last time.
Yeah, I actually like Super Willowa in this race
Sure.
for that reason. I think they are intending to rate this horse, and they didn't get the best of trip. They were kind of pinned down on the inside a little bit, couldn't get out, and ended up trying to go around. But
Third
I think
start of the form cycle today for Super Willowa, not beat a whole lot. I mean, if Destino d'Oro was in this field, Destino d'Oro is a heavy favorite here.
Yeah,
this is a legitimate graded
be,
stakes caliber horse, right?
8-5 on the morning line in a race like this.
So Super Willowa is one that Barry mentions.
And then one downfield, like a real long shot.
Throw it down there.
The 1, Lady Cha Cha.
Okay.
I think has a chance because of the fact that this race is probably going to be really fast paced up front. I think this horse might actually be the best closer. Just can't come from too far out of it. But I don't think it's going to really affect this horse too much in this race. Laura Cazares is training excellently down there, and I think this horse can probably get a good trip. Even though they're not going to try to go to the lead or anything, I think just settling on the rail might be good enough, and have this horse have a pretty decent shot at it if the pace sets up.
Save all the ground and come running for Lady Cha Cha at a massive price. I'll throw one to you with the 10 Super Zonda. I think Johnny V is going to just be a little more patient with this horse than she was last time out. Because the key, I think, is that she's able to string a few races together. You can see she's had a race and then a little time off and then a race and then a little bit of time off. And I think that's made her a little fresher in some of these races than they've wanted and maybe have to sit a little closer. I'd love if she sat that exact trip she sat in her debut, where they had her like 3 lengths off, take her back a little bit, don't have her like right up there on the pace, eliminate the non-turf races for her. And all of a sudden you're left with 3 races on the grass that are pretty good. I mean, she was 58-1 in that race last time out, and she was only beaten a couple lengths behind Destino d'Oro in the same race that we're talking about. For a lot of these horses, it's what you were mentioning with the 8. It's intent, right? Because they got to look at the page and see, we got to make this decision. Do we want to have our horse up front and go, or do we grab the hold early and say, we're going to try to settle this horse? I'm hoping they do that with the 10. You're hoping that's the case again with the 8, Super Willowa.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can lay off the pace. I don't think they need to be on the engine, which would serve them really good in this race.
Yep.
But I do wonder, with a horse like the 10 Super Zonda, if they just spun Vasquez off, but he ends up on a horse for an outfit that he rides a lot for.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to tell, with the head games and the mind games and the
job.
reading
Yeah.
between the lines here, but it's certainly possible. This is another tough race.
They did a really great job stacking the
They
sequence
did.
because
They
it's
definitely
going to
did.
be challenging, and it would not shock me at all if this was like a carryover into Sunday with how tough it is. I mean, Rugelach is solid. I like that she showed us she can sit off the pace a little bit. She lost to a horse named Silver Moonlight last time out, and look at this race so far. There were 4 next out winners. Silver Moonlight came back to win at Gulfstream Park next time out in a nice allowance race. So that's 3 in a row for Silver Moonlight. She just lost to a very, very sharp horse there. No knocks. And briefly mentioned Ashima. She won this race last year. She's not done much wrong throughout this year. Like
Yeah.
She's shown us she can win on the lead. She can come off the pace a little bit if need be. Didn't get the best of trips last time out and came from way, way out of it there. That was on Sunshine Million, or that was on the Claiming Crown Day over at Churchill Downs on November the 15th when she ran really well there. So yeah, she's won 8 of the last 11 and just really good on turf and synthetic. Challenging 11th race to close out the card at Gulfstream Park. So 2 of the Coast to Coast Pick 5 races are over at Gulfstream Park. And then the next 2, Barry, are over at Santa Anita to finish things up. So that's where we head back over to Santa Anita for, I believe, race number 6, which is the next one coming up in our Coast to Coast Pick 5 sequence. So taking a look at the 6th race at Santa Anita. The 5th race is the San Vicente. They kept this one out of a lot of the multis. Butane will probably be a heavy favorite. I will say any of the inside 4 horses really wouldn't shock me that much. They're like, based on speed figures and stuff, they're not separated a whole lot. It's just funny. Butane was favored over Ted Nafi when you look back in the hopeful. And it didn't run poorly. He was second, but Ted Nafi just crushed everyone that day. Acknowledge Me Please actually has the top buyer in the field when he had a 93 when he broke his maiden. I made so happy at my top pick. I really liked his win that day. But that's the 5th race. We're getting into the 6th race, which is an optional 50 starter allowance, going 6 furlongs on the turf course here. Let's take a look at some of the horses who will get some action. You got Hey Little Lady. She's one of those horses that you probably take a look at first glance and then go past her. But when you look at some of the horses she's been facing and then compare them to this group, she has been facing a lot of horses who then win into stakes races and graded stakes races and are pretty solid. So this is definitely class relief for her, but not a win machine and not a horse that's fast early. So she'll be coming from way, way out of it. You have the lightly raced Pocket Venus, who's going to try the turf for the first time. Cloudy Women feels like a good fit at the level. She just ran second the last time we saw her in the same spot, going 6 furlongs on the turf, October the 13th, a couple months ago though now. And then both the 7 and the 8 will probably get a little bit of support. You got Lady Rider, who was good in the only turf try, and then Motet's another one who's just been facing better. This is definitely softer. Motet kind of looks a little bit like the 3, Hey Little Lady, on paper. So Barry, again, they are not making this sequence easy for us. Who are some of the horses you want to start with?
Well, I know I want to start with a horse that I don't like, which is the 6, Cloudy Women.
Okay.
If you look at this horse's body of work, they won 1 time in sort of a perfect trip scenario and not very fast. I know their last race was okay, but to be 5-2 or to get bet down to 5-2 in a race like this, I don't think that horse would be worth that kind of price. As far as if you ran this race 10 times, I don't think this horse is winning 6 of them. Or 5 or 4. I would say more like 2, which would put this horse in a different sort of odds bracket. But that being said, a horse like the 7, Lady Rider, makes a ton of sense here. First time on the grass last time, ran really, really good. Gets Juan Hernandez to ride here should get a good trip. Obviously, won't need the lead, but if they end up on the lead, that's fine. But I don't think they're really going to end up on the lead. I think they're going to sit really close to it. But I really have a hard time seeing anybody beyond Lady Rider, to be honest with you. That last race was particularly pretty fast, and I don't think anybody else can hang with that kind of stuff in here.
Lady Rider's in the mix for me. I mentioned a couple others. The one that I think is kind of interesting is the 10.
10, yes.
Clubhouse Cutie. Now, the draw does concern me, but there's not that much early speed in this race to where she might be able to get over and not be parked all that wide from out there. Her only turf race was in a better spot against maiden special weight races back in April. Since then, she had a couple months off. She raced against maiden special weights at Los Al, few months off, dropped in class at Del Mar. I really like that win when she was sitting close at Del Mar. And now they go back to the turf, and we know she can run fine on the turf. And look who she's actually a sibling to. She's a half to the Trojan Vron, who was one of the better Calbreds we've ever seen, multiple grade 1 winner, and a horse who won on the turf as well as on the dirt. So she's bred well. She can sit close. She's shown us she can kind of stalk. I think she can get a nice trip from the outside. There's not again, it's a competitive group. There's just no monsters. Like the 7 I'm using, absolutely. Lady Rider, who Barry mentioned, 10's in the mix for me. And then the other two those are the two that I like the most at their prices. The other two I didn't know what to do with. You pointed out, I don't love Cloudy Women. I actually prefer the 3 because I just think the 3 is just on a drop, because it's like, I want to see this horse dropping down. At least there's something different happening, right? The 6 is kind of the horse that you've seen run at this level already. Like the 3 is a horse who's just been facing way better. She's facing Ribbons, who won that race, gate to wire, slick and innovative. Those horses were in the graded stakes races for 3-year-olds last year. Same thing with Thought Process. So I just think this is major class relief for her in here.
And I think the 5 actually is another interesting horse. Getting to the turf for the first time. Like you alluded to, there isn't much speed in this race. And there's definitely versions of this race where Pocket Venus gets an easy trip up front. It's probably more than possible. And 9-2 seems a little middle of the road. I think that price is probably about solid in this race.
Yeah.
And should get a good trip as well.
Yeah. I have no knocks on that. I mean, these are all horses that fit. And that's what's tough, is in all these races, 5-6 horses make sense. You have to make your decisions, how you want to structure your ticket, who you want to build around. You got to take a swing in one of these races where maybe you single one of the horses. Maybe it's in a race like where Barry and I were both talking about the Vladimir Serin horse, first start off the claim coming over. That might be a race where you got to take a single, and maybe we single that horse in a big race, because otherwise you're doubling and tripling up. And you have to make
really expensive, right? Quickly.
You got to make the decision. So race number 6, the 4th leg of the pick 5 sequence. Let's move to the 8th race, which is the 5th and final leg of the sequence. Barry, this one will go a mile on the turf course. Let's look at some of the major players in here. We've got the 3, Castle Leoch, who's coming off of a win last time, and she actually beat 4 of today's rivals in that race. You've got, Jimmy Blue Jeans has been solid at this level for a while, but he just doesn't win a whole lot anymore. He's 0 for his last 14. One of those races, he did get DQ'd. You got a wild card coming over from New York, trying to figure out where he fits in Southern California. You've got the 7, Don't Swear Dave, who was actually favored behind Castle Leoch last time out. Russell's Hustle is another one I think is kind of trying to figure where he fits, dropping in class after facing tough groups in his last 2. Fantastic is a horse that you've hit on before in prior races. This horse has some back class and fits pretty well at this level. So again, not an easy spot. Barry, talk to us about some of the horses who you want to use in this field.
Yeah, it was kind of tough for me this race. Again, another tough race where everybody kind of looks the same, at least talent wise. But I locked in on 2 horses here. The first would be the 3 Castle Leoch. I think they just have run better races than a majority of these horses. And the layoff made a lot of sense when they took it. Coming back, this horse fits at this level to a T. I expect a really good effort out of this horse. I'm just worried about the price being a lot lower than 6-1. The other is the 8 Russell's Hustle.
Yep.
Just ever since this horse stretched out on the grass, has been very, very good. And I don't think that trend will not continue. The last 2 races, they were hung out wide and just really didn't get a great shot at it.
No shot in either of those races at all.
And then, this.
So if you're
this
playing
isn't
him
fast
off the
post.
September race, right? Like if you're just playing him off the race in September, if he didn't run in either of those last 2 races, he's a major player.
Right. He'd be 7-5 on the morning line or something
absolutely.
like that. He was just way too wide and didn't have a shot at it. And then the time in August, he was out wide and almost won against a little bit lesser, but I can forgive those 2 last efforts, and his body of work is pretty solid.
Russell's Hustle is absolutely in the mix for me. He is 8-1, or he is 5-1, the number 8. Just October 4th, hooked 3 wide all the way out. Last time, or 2 starts back, or same thing. Like 3 wide all the way in those last 2 races, had no shot trying to get over from those posts. I think should just be much better in this spot. You get the drop in class. This one fits. I'm going to give you one that's a little bit crazy because honestly, the one thing kind of looking through the field, you've got the 1 Neon Lights. I don't know. Like I played this course a lot. I think he likes to sit off a little bit. Like I'm not quite sure how fast he is, and maybe he's going to go from the inside post position, but there's one long shot I am throwing in, and that is the 6, So I'm Told, who is 30-1 on the morning line. This is not a win machine, but look at this horse's last few races on the grass. The 6 furlong race in October, that race is not bad at all. Was only beaten a length and 3/4 that day. Go back to the Del Mar race in that starter allowance, going a mile. That race was not bad. Set the pace that day and faded. You're going back to like May 31st, and you're getting a horse who like maybe was a bit overmatched in that spot. I think this horse has got a little bit of a shot in a race where there's just not all that much early speed in here. I'm definitely going to throw this one in. Who else have we not mentioned in here, Barry, that you want to mention? We got through 8. Yeah, you starting with the 6-1 shot
is really perplexing because those last 2 efforts.
Yeah, he's another one.
Bad.
Like if you just eliminate those 2 and you're playing him off of last year, but now all of a sudden that's a whole year, right? His 2 races were all he had in 2025, and they were awful, really bad. Now you're a first-time gelding, but if you get back to either of the 2 races last year at Keeneland or at Churchill, those would be easily really good in here. They crushed this field.
They'd win this. Yeah.
So
he's a tough read. Again, the board is going to be a clue here for that one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take too short of a price, though.
What do we do with Fantastic to the outside?
I'm chucking him.
Yeah. The post is what worries me.
Yeah.
Way out wide. Not sure if it's going to set up all that well there. So I like others a little bit more. Fantastic. The 11 at 3-1. So Barry, final thoughts. This coast to coast pick 5, just to remind you all one more time, it starts at Gulfstream in race number 8. Then it goes to Santa Anita for race number 4, back to Gulfstream for the 11th, and then races 6 and 8 at Santa Anita. $1 based wager, 15% low takeout. You've got no carryovers. So if it doesn't, or no 4 to 5. So if nobody hits that thing, it carries over to the next day, and these pay really, really well. Final thoughts, my friend.
Let's get this money. I'm ready.
This is a tough sequence. Good luck to all of you. Make sure you're following along with Daily Racing Form social media pages, because a lot of the times we will have free pass performances for some of these sequences, and we'll share them with you out on the socials. Don't forget about the different feeders you can play over at ExpressBet this weekend at Santa Anita and over at Gulfstream Park. Head to the Gulfstream Park shop at shop.drf.com for past performances, DRF picks, clocker reports, everything you need when you're playing the races.
Play the popular Coast to Coast Pick 5 and the new Sunset Pick 6, featuring the last 3 races from
Gulfstream Park at Santa Anita Park. A $1 minimum.
retail